Hello and welcome back. You are here with the Let's Get Real podcast, Canadian Perspectives on Fundraising. This is episode 11. So if you're new to joining us, there are lots of opportunity to get caught up on things that have been going on in Canada's nonprofit sector. We're joined today by Ed Sluga, and our special guest is Kerri LaJeunesse from Harvey MacKinnon Associates. Kerri, welcome. It's nice to have you here. Where are you dialing in from today?
Well, today I'm on Vancouver Island. I'm in sunny Souk, BC. It's a beautiful day today, so thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, this is great. Sun is shining. I'm in Toronto, actually. I'm normally in Ottawa, but I'm in Toronto, and it was a chilly minus 11 this morning, but the sun is shining, which always makes things feel better. How about you, Ed?
Feels better, but when you go outside at 6 a.m. with the dogs, the sun is not up, and the dogs are taking their time. It was not great. But anyway, spring is almost around the corner, and so we look forward to the reawakening of the gardens and the sunshine and a good summer, because we need one after this hard winter. Where we are anyway, of course, out where Kerri has been, it's tropical paradise out there.
Well, there's been a lot of rain, I tell you, and it's tough sometimes getting through January and February. But as soon as we start seeing things coming from the ground, like my garlic is up, and then you start to get a little bit cheerful. So,
yeah, reason for optimism. I would love it if I could segue and say that we're talking about things today that have to do with spring, but I can't pull it out of my head. I don't see it. So I'm just going to come right at it. Kerri, I'm really excited to have you here. You wrote an article recently for Hillborn Charity E-News, and it was about why metrics matter more than ever. And you created a little analogy to the fact that, vital signs tell us about our health, and do charities know their vital signs for what they're working on in their metrics? So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you in just a minute. Ed is talking about what is happening with staffing in the sector. We know things are going on. But the question is, I think Ed wants to ask is what's being done about it? We know issues are there, and we're going to just dive into that a little bit and see, who knows, maybe metrics have something to do with that. I don't know. And then I'm talking about something a little bit more personal today. I have had the time and kind of space to get a little bit more involved in my personal time in some different philanthropic activities. And I just wanted to share a few things I was reflecting on the weekend after participating in an event about the nature of generosity and the way that we're connecting with donors, and the importance of kind of grassroots events as a tie for people to their communities and people around them. So that is kind of my reflection, and perhaps we'll end on that today because it's a little more softy feely kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But let's start with you, Kerri. So, there was a great line in your article that appealed to my brain because I think it told the story without telling the story. But you said most charities don't have a revenue problem. They actually have a donor retention problem. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I've noticed over the last few years is fundraising costs are rising, and getting that second donation is tougher. So while donors may give less often, they are actually giving larger amounts. So we're seeing, at least with our clients, we're seeing the average gift go up a little bit higher. Response rates are a little bit lower. And then you have those external factors like the Canada Post strikes, which made prospecting for new donors even harder. So despite stable overall revenue, because that's what I've been seeing, we know that our clients and our the Canadian clients are doing a great job at multi-channel fundraising. I see gifts continue to come in to keep everybody afloat and that revenue fairly stable. And so that might be a reason why, organizations aren't looking as closely at important metrics. I think many charities fall short on stewardship and not getting that crucial second gift or even the crucial third gift from those precious prospecting donors that come in at such a cost, right? It takes a lot of time and energy to get them in. And so I think looking at those retention rates and that second gift renewal rate is so important. Otherwise, your donor base just the attrition just hits getting smaller and smaller. And that may have something to do. We may end up talking a little bit about that and the overturn in employees, right? Because maybe somebody does stewardship really, really well for 2 years, and then they decide to move somewhere else, and the new person isn't, as good at that, or they're not as strong as that, or they haven't done that before. So that's why I think it's so important, even though that revenue is showing as, not too bad. We're doing okay, but we're doing okay with blindfold on, right?
With a limited view. And I, just even in in that comment here, it shows like how many factors are involved. We talk about the donor pipeline, we talk about, the donor giving cycle. Like we have all of these kind of models and descriptors that we use for what is essentially that process of receiving a donation, stewarding that donor, and so on and so forth. I would love to just for a minute, just take that slice that you focused on in your article that looked at what a couple of those indicators of sustainability are, because sustainability is also another word that we're talking about a lot in the sector when it comes to gifts and donors and how giving is happening. And you said there is a way that we can take our temperature as an organization on this, and are we in a sustainable kind of situation? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think one of the most important vital sign is the renewal rate. So which donors are giving again. So right now the industry standard is at 59% years ago, and this is based on the Good Works benchmark from 2025. We're seeing it went from 63% to percent, and we definitely don't want to see anything underneath 58%. So that to me is a very important metrics to see. And also gift conversion rate is really only between 20. That's the industry standard across Canada, and that's pretty low. And it tells me that there are things that need to be improved in the donor process, right? In how we show impact. So those are the two that I think we need to definitely look at and see what's happening there, because those are two metrics that I think are fairly easy to boost once we know where we're sitting, right? Is the stewardship not up to par? Do we have to do a thankathon, a quick thankathon? Do we need to send out specific thank you letters to specific appeals instead of a broad thank you that everybody gets for any gift they ever make? How do we treat our mid-level donors? How are we treating those lapsed donors? Are we just letting them lapse without contacting them and then paying more for prospecting instead of reaching out to people who gave to us? for years and years, and then all of a sudden lapse. Why did they lapse? So those are the two metrics I think I would definitely look at.
Yeah. And Ed, I'm sure I'm sure Kerri's singing your song. Like what has your experience been? Are these the kind of metrics that you lean on as well, or where would you weigh in on this?
Well, first, and it's great that Kerri's bringing this up because, as you know, Lisa, talking about this over the last few months, I'm a big believer that metrics need to exist, right? And we have to hold ourselves accountable. And that doesn't mean outlandish ones. That doesn't mean crazy sort of aspirational ones pulled out of thin air by various CEOs or C-suite folks or board members. This is really about measurable and logical
Yes.
and realistic attitudes towards measuring the work that you do. Everybody gets measured. We do too. But our complaint, I think, in the sector hasn't been. It's been actually targeted at crazy metrics as opposed to realistic metrics, and that's been the friction that's been happening. And frankly, and I think Kerri's kind of highlighting this, we've been only basing it on one metric, and that is money coming in. And the fact is, and we've talked about this before, that donors have gone down, quote unquote, fewer donors. And I've said very clearly, no, 100% of Canadian adults give to a charity every year. Absolutely. I will say that, and I will go against anyone who wants to argue it. But they just don't care about their tax receipt. They don't care about it. They get $10 to the local scout troop to buy some cookies, whatever it is, or guides, or all of those things. You buy apples, you buy poppies, you give to the local charity, you put it into the fireman's boot when you come out of the local grocery store. You're giving, you don't care about tax receipts. I think so, but I understand the visuals of this. And I want to say this, and I'd love to get your position on this, Kerri, because we often talk, being from the legacy giving side of this, we often say to folks that your measurable is if for every 100 donors that you consider to be a current donor, do you have 5 to 7% of them as expectancies for a plan? What you're thinking about when you acquire a donor, which is great, and dollars in the door, and we have that metric, but the donor journey needs to be towards plan giving.
Absolutely.
Last gift ever. And I would suggest, Kerri, and you tell me if I'm wrong about this, that most organizations sort of say, here's the annual fund list, here's what we're doing, our metrics and annual fund, and major gifts is their own thing, and plan giving, nobody knows what they're doing anyway. I don't know what they're doing. They're off in the corner. If we don't tie it through the throughput all the way to, every 100 of our donors passing away this year, did 5 to 7 of them give us a gift, then we're missing the opportunity to link this journey together from acquisition to, frankly, the passing away of a donor. I'd just love to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, 100% agree with you. I think it's so important to get those legacy messages out all the way through. For many of our clients, we do little legacy donor profiles in newsletters. We're making sure there's a checkbox on all of the reply forms. We are, getting those little pieces out, sending the giving, did you know about this is what you can do for legacy giving, making sure that it is accessible for everyone, and legacy giving doesn't look like it's only for people who are rich, or it has to look like every donor. And working with the legacy team and the annual team to kind of intertwine the program, so everybody is always getting that message, and it's not a surprise. Like, I could actually leave a gift. Well, they should in the beginning, right? And and without proper stewardship, donors, if you get new donors in the door, the whole idea is to get them converted to monthly donors, because
Yeah,
your
if
monthly
I
donors are
can,
going to be those folks.
if I can jump in, and I totally agree. And one of the things that we're seeing in the research that's coming out is that, as you said, Kerri, revenue is stable, and in some organizations, it's actually growing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But one of the things that's coming out in the messaging is, there are fewer donors giving, but how the revenue stayed stable is by diversification of revenue streams by those charities and not-for-profits. Well, yeah, exactly. Why weren't they diversified 15, 20 years ago? If our charities are finding out that diversification will keep revenue stable and grow, this is, this is kind of one of those moments like, duh, of course you've got to
yeah,
diversify your revenue.
yeah,
If you put everything into one basket, all into annual fund, you will find yourself
yeah.
slowly going out of business. But that's
Oh,
true major
absolutely.
giving as well, or plan giving. You need everything. You need all working really, really well. You need plans all through this, and you need to integrate and elevate everything. So,
Yeah.
the fact for me is that journey that you're talking about, that you're doing with your clients, and we do as well, and we tell our clients to do this if we're not actually involved in some of these activities. It's ultimately a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and this is where Lisa will pull me way back, Ed, be nice. The fact is, I can't believe in this day and age we're still telling charity fundraisers on the marketing side or the fundraising side that you need to do this. Why aren't, like, we should go into shops, you and I, Kerri, and Lisa, you should be getting articles for Charity E-News saying, oh, the power of diversification of revenue. We did it. It's fantastic. We should come in and see no gap in that. The fact is the gap is still there. We have to rethink how we're doing it. Again, the research says right now, the only reason that charities are remaining stable and growing is they're diversifying their revenue. Of course they're what are you talking about? Of course you are diversifying your revenue. So that's a good thing. We can't rely on only one source of funding.
That's correct. Yeah.
And I think to kind of wrap up this segment, what I'm just going to remind is that it is the data, it is the metrics, it is having that information and having the knowledge about those campaigns, those programs that allow you to be strategic and be intentional about creating those diversification programs and deciding where you're allocating your people resources, your all of your different resources to kind of make that happen. So I think that we can go from like big picture down to very kind of specific logistical how to, and I believe that the how to starts with the metrics. It's entering the data, it's collecting the data, it's monitoring what's coming in that allows you, that empowers an organization to then take that and use that as their platform for growth and strategic kind of placement. So I mean, this is just, again, it's always kind of fascinating how these different topics, they're multi-layered and they are definitely integrated with each other and different fundraising channels and different approaches. And I think this is another really great example of that. But I really appreciate that we've taken a bit of time to just kind of look at a couple of very specific examples and how it relates to donor retention and how that can then be tied into more long-term kind of visioning that includes programs like plan giving. So it's like all the way down.
Yeah,
right?
all the way. Absolutely.
Any last thoughts, Kerri? Because then we're going to just take a quick break.
Last thoughts. I think it's not. I think it's not as difficult as it seems. I think that's my. If teams are working together, create a large calendar where everybody knows what everybody else is doing, and then you're not wasting resource time on anything. It is not as difficult as it seems, I don't think. A day, right? A day to get together and create a great calendar, and that would be my.
And if I can add one thing, sorry, Kerri. I mean, I love that. It's really great. I think the other thing is, and we talk about this, is donors are also prospects, right? So a donor who's just given you their third gift in a row, 3 years in a row, giving you, they're a prospect for monthly giving.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
They're also a prospect if they've given ever increasing amounts, 500 to 1,000. This year was 1,500. They're also a prospect for major leadership giving. And if they've given 5 plus, 10 plus years, they become a prospect for plan giving. If we, as our at PG Growth, our prospect researcher, Tracy Church, often talks about it. Your donor is really, they think of you as a supporter. They don't think of you as an annual donor, major donor, plan gift donor. They don't think of you as that. Think of themselves as that. They think that they're supporting the cause or the organization. So if we think of them that way, we'll give them lots of opportunities to give. We won't lose them. We'll bring them along with us.
Yeah, I love that, Ed. I think that's actually a perfect way to wrap up on that. So let's take a break, and we'll be coming right back. And then we're going to talk about what's going on with hiring and staffing in this sector, and what is being done. I mean, things have to be happening, but how do we figure out what that is? So we'll take a break and then come right back. All right, thanks for sticking with us. This is Let's Get Real, Canadian Perspectives on Fundraising, and we're just starting kind of our second segment for today, and we're gonna throw it to Ed, because Ed is wanting to have a conversation about these growing staff issues that we're seeing in the fundraising sector. What are you thinking about this, Ed? What's on your mind?
Yeah, and I do think we've touched on this a little bit in previous episodes, but I do want to come back to it. And the reason is that we continue to see this issue being raised by clients, being raised by fundraisers, pressure on fundraisers, leading to them either leaving the sector, and also there isn't this funnel or this bringing in of new people. So there is a decreasing number of fundraisers. More and more opportunities are open, many of them going unfilled. People, are leaving the sector. Lots of stats around this too. I mean, ultimately, it's a really interesting sector, the not-for-profit sector, which includes us in the fundraising side of things. 2.5 million plus people work in our sector. And of course, this takes into account government, all those kind of big not-for-profits we know about, like university and places like that, all the fundraisers around them. A huge sector, but it's a place of lower pay and higher pressures, and lots of governance and lots of scrutiny. And the fact is that it's putting a damper on a lot of potential newcomers into the sector. Okay, but every sector has its issues. What are we doing about it, right? What are we doing to message things out? And I'll give you some micro and some macro. I was talking to a young person working in the fundraising field, and they were talking about, why is it that they could not work from home a couple, days a week, 3 days a week, and come in a couple of days a week. And they felt that leadership wasn't articulating why they had to come in. And I know when I worked at a hospital foundation, we were asked to come in all the time simply because so did all the nurses, and so did all the doctors, and so did all the techs, and everybody cleaning, and everybody else who worked in that hospital we were raising money for had to come in. But I'm not talking about the impetus or the desire to stay and work from home. I'm talking about how are we messaging this out to potential new people. That's a micro. So we're failing on that micro level, that we're not telling the story properly.
It's culture,
It's
right, Ed?
culture.
It's culture.
It's totally a culture, right to the macro level. And the macro level for me is, the fact is that we, almost every other sector, if there was a problem with a lack of new people entering into it, there would be some grouping together of leaders across the country. Whoever those leaders might be, I don't know who they are. And as a former professor of one of the fundraising courses at one of the colleges in Canada, this for me it was at Humber College. This would be a moment where maybe the directors of those courses get together and say, because we're seeing enrollment down in these places, we're seeing less people coming into it. How are we going to address this? There's pressures on us from the metrics to take some of that conversation before. There's pressures on with the lack of understanding about how we manage these young people coming into the sector. There's also some old school notions of what a fundraiser is. Now and more fundraisers need to have lots of maybe diverse skills. I remember years ago when I was applying for jobs coming out of university, you would talk about computer skills, which was, wow, you can use a computer. That's how old I am. People would be like, can you use a computer? And then suddenly it was like, I can use this and that and this suite of services.
Yes,
Microsoft,
I have Excel, I have Word, it was a laundry list.
Those things are gone. That's expected of you. What are the other things? And I think we're hiring poorly. And I'll say this one last thing where this is kind of getting, a little bit out of control. Not out of control, that's too strong, but that we're not correctly positioning things. And, we had a client that was looking for a director's role, and they hire a recruiting firm to go out there. The job profile was 10 pages long. And the salary, which was already, was a director's role, the salary was low. The deliverables were immense. And what I said, they'd asked me to look at it, and I said, look, and I don't want to sound arrogant here, but I'm an expert in this field in Canada, and I wouldn't apply for this job because I could not succeed at what you're asking for.
Yeah.
And we're getting out of sync with who we need, what they want to do, the messaging they need to hear from us. And there's no coordination about bringing new people in. And I think that this is something we have to pay attention to, because more and more we are lacking new blood into the system. And that is not going to be a positive, not maybe 2 years from now or 5 years from now, but 10 plus years, as a certain cohort finally retires, which I'm at the bottom end of. I don't know what's next, and I don't know what's happening.
Kerri, I'm going to throw to you here in a second, but I'm just going to jump in on this because I don't know if you saw this on my LinkedIn this last week, but I actually spoke. This was a bee in my bonnet that I did a little post about because, and I'm gonna pick up on this idea of our old school notion of what a fundraiser is. Number one, number two, that we're out of sync, with who we need. And in particular, I was launching off of an article that Laura Champion wrote for us. And she wrote about the fact that she had just gone through a hiring process. And she actually ended up hiring someone who was in the autumn of her career and actually had much more, like in terms of years of experience, than Laura had. And at first, Laura was intimidated to kind of hire the woman into the role because she seemed overqualified, But people have all different kinds of reasons for applying for where they apply and why they want to work for, why they want to work at a place in a role. And luckily, Laura has the kind of leadership, kind of self-awareness and knowledge that she realized this was the right woman for the role, that she brought a lot of skills that would support the team, build the team. And so Laura didn't let her own feelings, maybe again, imposter syndrome, maybe just not kind of feeling secure. She didn't let that get in her way, and she hired
Mm.
this woman. And I think that we need to do more of getting out of our own way in terms of hiring. And it does start also with our job descriptions. Like the 10-page job description is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And asking for qualifications, professional qualifications that a lot of times aren't even out there anymore in terms of some of our school programs. I'm talking formal. I'm not talking about the CFREs. I'm not talking about those enhancements, but I'm talking about, I graduated with a certificate in nonprofit fundraising. Those programs are very hard to kind of access and come by now. But if we would look at the life experience of people, look at what they have done, there are a lot of candidates, and I've gone through it with some personal friends of mine who've wanted to transition to working in the nonprofit sector, but don't come with that on paper, but have a resume of life experience and of skills that's entrepreneurial, that includes marketing, like all of these things. And they're not being recognized for what they bring to the table. And I find it so infuriating, because while we talk about talent shortages, while we talk about all of these things, we're not really looking to change our systems and change our frameworks to embrace and be inclusive of people from all different kinds of backgrounds. So I am on board with this, and this whole idea, and I would really like to, personally continue talking about how we advance the sector and advance the profession, and not just in terms of leaders, but there's at every level we're looking for support and skills, right? Sorry, I'm a little bit, this one.
I'm supposed to be the grumpy one on this
me.
podcast, Lisa. I'm supposed to be the grumpy one.
Kerri, any
Yes.
thoughts from you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think leadership needs to get out of its own way. Honestly, I've been a few places where, leadership is it's the example that should be what you want to follow. And in some cases, I'm not seeing that, right? So, and that trickles down. And then you get to that place where either people are getting micromanaged and not allowed to do their job, or they don't even know what their job title. They get hired for one thing and they come in and they're doing something else, or something really important like monthly donors are on the side of your desk, right? Or legacy giving on the side of your desk, right? So I think you're right about the descriptions. It needs to be clear. It can't be 4 jobs in one at a low salary. It just can't. We need to think about how to get the best people to be running these extremely important programs, right?
Yeah, if I can just, I love your leadership discussion. I'll just tell a couple of quick stories, and one story is that, and it goes to what you just said, Kerri, which is, let's have people do a job, right? Let's not try and shoehorn. And what else can they do? Let's shoehorn. Yeah. And I was talking to some people working in advancement at universities recently, and major universities with tens of thousands of students and hundreds of thousands of alumni and other supporters. And, I was telling them about how in Canada, we are so under-resourced in the university sector, and giving examples of in the United States. And, again, it's not apples to apples comparison. I understand that, but there is echoes there. And the reality is you have small colleges, small universities with 10 times as many fundraisers in it. And of course, they're raising lots more money, and they're having people focus on an area, making it really, really effective and efficient in terms of gathering support for the organization. So that's one thing. I want to talk about another leadership moment I had with a client. And former leader leaving, mentoring the new leader coming in. I had a conversation with both, but I had the most important conversation with the new leader, and they asked about the person in charge of fundraising. And they said, what's your take on their successes? And I said, well, can you tell me what you're measuring? And this gets back to what are you measuring success on?
Yeah.
What are their metrics and how are they doing against their metrics? And what they said was, oh, they don't have any metrics. So what are you basing this on? You don't feel like you like them? We're not playing floor hockey at school where we're picking teams and I like this person and not that person. If I'm playing floor hockey and I know one of them is a great goal scorer, it won't matter how I feel about them. I'm going to choose them to be on my team. I won't hang out with them after school. You know, the reality is, I'm sorry for that metaphor, but I went down a road and I had to.
Yeah, it's okay.
But anyway, you know, we have leaders who are judging on how do I feel about this, or you know, they're presented with a moment where it's like, oh, we've got to trim the budget, or you know, we need to come in and do this, so let's get rid of a bunch of fundraisers and we'll take this one person and give them 3 jobs, but we'll expect the same amount of revenue. So it does come from leadership here, and that's why I started off with some of those leadership stories. And I would suggest, if I had a remedy for this, is that every AFP chapter, every CAGP chapter, and the head offices, you know, when there's a job fair at, you name the enormous university across the country, there's a job fair at UBC, at University of Calgary, University of Winnipeg, at University of Toronto, McGill, at Dalhousie, and all of the other ones. I'm sorry for those I didn't mention. And they have a job fair. Why isn't the AFP or the CAGP coming in and saying, hey, a life as a fundraiser is a pretty darn good job, and it's a pretty good, and we know what you want, and we can deliver that for you. So there needs to be leadership on the front end and and everywhere in between, on those macro and the micro. We need to be working on this or the question is, are you truly leaders? And I hate to put it that way, but it's true. Yeah. Are you truly a leader? Because you love to be called a leader, and you want to, and this goes right back to Marla Smith on a few episodes ago. We praise mediocrity in leadership. Who are the real leaders out there? And I feel like we're doing our jobs as consultants, Kerri and I, and as a communicator and somebody leading Canada's largest and most important source of news around this, Lisa. We're doing our best to talk about this. Where's the leadership around the country? Love to see that.
Yep. It's a good discussion that I think we're going to keep having, and leadership impacts us in so many different ways, important ways for the sector. So this is just kind of one more piece of that puzzle. Thanks, Ed. Thanks for getting me riled up.
Calm you down, pull you down.
All right, so we're gonna take another quick break, and then we're gonna come back, and I'm gonna finish things up. Little bit of a different tone, but come back and we'll see where that goes. Thanks for coming back for the final segment of Let's Get Real, Canadian Perspectives on Fundraising. I'm just going to say again a thank you to Kerri LaJeunesse from Harvey MacKinnon Associates for being our guest panelist today. Thanks also for Ed, who always brings such good, interesting topics to the table. I am here to just share a few insights. For those of you who are watching on YouTube as opposed to listening, I've done a little wardrobe change just to kind of accentuate my point. Some of you may know I'm an empty nester. I have 2 daughters who are both away at university, and so I have more time to kind of get involved in charities in my neighborhood, in my area where I live. and I'm part of a couple of boards, but I actually participated for the first time in the coldest night of the year event. Not something I've ever
Mm.
done before. And it was put out into the community by our local city councillor, is how I heard about it. So I didn't have a previous affiliation with coldest night of the year. It was a 5K walk. And I am a walker, I'm a runner, I do these kind of things. And February is a long month. So that's probably what kind of captured my interest initially, that I just thought it would be a fun way to get out and move and do something and for a good cause. And then I learned more about the work of not only the event, but the recipient charity, who is the Cornerstone Housing for Women in my community. And then I really got on board and I was like,
Mm.
wow, this is even more exciting. And then I invited my friends to participate. I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, they accept teams, maybe I can put in a team. And do you know, there were 8 of us who were out participating in this event on Saturday. And it was a great time. It was a connection to the community. We got to tour, as part of the walk, the facilities of Cornerstone Housing for Women. We got to meet and talk to recipients who were benefiting from funds raised through the event, who were there partnering and working with the team putting on the event. And there was just so much goodwill. And I just really, I thought, well, what is the takeaway from this? I mean, I work in philanthropy every single day. We talk about issues like we've just discussed in the first, half of this podcast, which are talking about things like metrics and leadership and hiring. And, I'm very much involved in all of that framework that constitutes our philanthropic sector. And I have been for years. I worked in the sector front lines as well for 10 years before I kind of stepped away into more of a reporting, journalistic, editorial role. So I've been there as well. And now I'm kind of getting the opportunity to really explore what it means to volunteer and to donate and come in from that side. So it's interesting perspectives when you kind of weave it all together. One of the things that we've talked about, and it came up again today, is this idea of generosity of Canadians, and are Canadians still giving? Reports will tell us Canadians are giving less. Raises a question: are Canadians less generous? Are we becoming less generous in our activities? And we know Ed would 100% dispute that. And I always love to have a healthy kind of debate with you, Ed. I'm actually on side with you. I don't think generosity has dropped. I also believe that Canadians are giving every day out there, but maybe not in measurable ways, not in ways that our metrics are capturing it. And I think my experiences of being on the boards for not only a local charity, but a national charity, and then being an organizer, a team leader for a walk event, like I just was, I see so many examples of the ways that people are giving, the
Mm.
ways that they are generous. We always talk about time, talent, and treasure. Again, these almost become kind of tropes for our sector, but they're true. People will dig into their pocket and give. People will, at the drop of a hat, come out and give their time. And they will contribute their expertise and talents where that's possible as well. And it's very inspiring. So I did kind of a top 5 takeaways that I have from some of these experiences that I thought I would just like to share. First of all, COVID now is in our rear view, even
Mm.
though, I still every once in a while see reports from Ottawa Health that they're measuring COVID, uh, as a virus in the city. It is very much in our rear view. We see that by back to work. And I can attest, now that I've been to a few things, people are ready to be out at events, that they want to
Mm.
participate and meet people. And that this is actually, I'll call it like 1B of point number one, but that the face-to-face contact that comes through meetings and events brings joy and connection. And that is always what philanthropy has been about, is about joy and connection. Whether it started out with as because you were part of a church parish that allowed you to give back to the community, whether you were joining things like Girl Guides or other sports events that made you feel connected, and then there was a fundraising or a philanthropic element to that. People are ready to be at events, they're ready to connect, they're enjoying the joy, and they want to be connected to people and their community around them. That's kind of one and two. Also, fundraising, thanks to the technology we have right now, isn't very hard to do. As a team leader, I was given graphics to use on social media. I was given language. I used email to reach out to my networks. Long gone are the days of carrying around a pledge sheet and getting people to fill in their, amounts and then collect the toonies or the checks of fundraising of old. And I think that the models of fundraising that we have now really enables it, and it's easier for people to get involved and be a part of that. Also, next point, people will give. And that whole idea of reaching out, sometimes it's not who you think, sometimes it's not the amount that you think they will give, but people are giving all the time. And that's inspiring. And then finally, I also really felt the reality of how important follow-up is, and that stewarding piece, that stewardship piece. And Kerri, you had raised that as well. Look, when we signed in for our event, first of all, not only was there some swag for us, including buttons, our top fundraiser of my team, who raised over $1,000, received a gold button that identified her contribution and was thanking her for that. I received a handwritten card from Cornerstone Housing thanking me for being a team lead. I had a captain button, so that this all kind of set the tone. Then when I posted on social media, I was thanked again by both Coldest Night of the Year event planners plus Cornerstone, who asked for permission to use some of the pictures, thanking me again. And I really felt, even 24 hours after the event was done, that the contribution was valued and that I was engaged. Now ask me if I'm going to sign up and do it next year again. You bet I am. Now ask me if they are
donor retention. Look at that.
Right?
And you'll invite a few of your friends.
100%. All of my team members said, who had no prior knowledge of the charity or the event, said, oh, we'll do this next year again. And our team raised $3,400 between the 8 of them, which was not nothing. So those are my reflections on boots on the ground philanthropy and fundraising and charity. And generosity is not dead. I think that we just need to be smarter in how we're recognizing it and how we're defining it and how we're capturing it. Kerri, any thoughts? Or Ed?
I think you're amazing. I think that's so right, and I see it every day. I see it on my Facebook. I'm joined a Facebook group called Souk Embrace, and people ask for something, and they immediately 3-4 people are saying, "I'll get that to you. I'll drop it off. Do you need me to get you groceries? I'll give you money for gas." Like whatever they need. I don't have enough. I didn't have enough of my budget to plan for my daughter's graduation party, and I'd really like to. Everything was done. Decorations, gifts, snacks, pizza, the local pizza shop, right?
Yep.
And I just think in these hard times, these difficult times that the world is going through, we are giving more than ever before because it feels good, doesn't it? It feels so good.
It really
Yeah,
does.
and I'll say, that last part, which is really important. We've been through some really miserable times over the last, let's say, 8 years. But it all depends. You can decide when this started. The reality is, that's why, Lisa, I think what you're doing is really fantastic, and everybody should do something like that. And it's okay to not feed the various institutes that want to measure this with tax receipts. It's okay. You know what? We're just going to be citizens of this country and community, whatever you identify with, community, province, region, country, it doesn't matter. And you're going to give, and most Canadians do. And by the way, I often say about adult Canadians, boy, kids and teenagers give so much.
Kids are amazing.
And they don't care about tax receipts. They're not doing taxes.
No.
My daughter made a $40 donation. My 19-year-old daughter did a $40 donation to my campaign. She's not going to get a tax receipt. That's 40 hard-earned dollars for her.
Yeah.
And she just did it.
Yes.
Amazing.
And I do think it comes to these moments, right, where there's more for us to talk about on this podcast coming up in future episodes, and we've talked about some of these things. There's a difference, right? There are marked differences between not-for-profits that are getting some huge percentage of their operating capital from various ministries of the government, who also do a little fundraising, and what their needs are, which are actually in line with what they're getting from the government. $1 billion hospital needs $100 million a year, right? $1 million charity needs $100,000. Where's your impact more and better felt, right? I'm not saying decide between one or the other, but go as a donor and make your impact felt. And you are, I think, Lisa, from this. You're going to feel this impact because you know this organization and you know the good work. And you can line of sight it too. My guess is you know where it's located. You've seen the building, and you know what you've done. So well done.
And now I know. Thank you. And now I know. Sorry, one final thing. Now I know how to give to them in other ways. I see that they accept donations, that they do, food donations, they do clothing donations, all of that. And now I know how to access that too. And again, it's in my community, so I'm going to do that. So there you go. Philanthropy in all of its forms, right? All the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, we are. I'm going to keep the toque on.
It looks great on you. So.
Thank you. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the vibe. We are going to break, and then we're going to come back, ending on a little bit more of goodwill with our Let's Be Charitable. Each of us is going to give a shout out to a person, place, organization, happening, event, whatever that may be, that we feel is doing some good works in our sector or something to take note of for our listeners. So one last break. We'll come back and wrap it up with Let's Be Charitable. Thanks. Here we are back for some final thoughts with the Let's Get Real Canadian Perspectives on Fundraising podcast. You've been listening to Ed Sluga, Kerri LaJeunesse, and me, Lisa McDonald. We have a few final thoughts for you on some good things happening in our sector. Ed, can you lead us off?
Well, yeah, and I wanted to go first just because, taking what you just talked about, taking a number of things we've talked about today. And I wanted to shout out to a group that I spoke with or presented to and spoke with in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, fundraising professionals, some of them with CFREs, some of them thinking about getting their CFREs. And why I wanted to talk about it is that, what I mentioned at the time is this group, this sector is becoming, under greater scrutiny all the time, particularly since the for-profit sector has decided that there's money to be made in fundraising. And, the fact is that when we chatted together as a group, I felt really good about it. Much like you just made us feel good about fundraising in the way that you're doing it, organizations, charity of of Canadians, generally speaking. I think that the professionals that we have working in fundraising right now, they actually provide a lot of hope for me in terms of being great leaders, if I can use that term, although I maligned it earlier. They are leaders, but great mentors and great practitioners as well in the sector. And we've got lots of them. What we need to do is make sure we cherish them a little bit. And I'm using that term purposefully. We need them to feel like they're worthwhile, that they're doing something that's incredibly important, and they'll help, tackle the issue of bringing new folks in. But it was great. It makes me feel good. I want to be charitable to that group for coming out, for being such great sports. They laughed at all the right spots too. That's not charitable. Anyway, that's awesome. My charitable take this time.
Great. Thanks, Ed. And you, Kerri?
Today, I'd like to be charitable to two of my favorites, the Greater Vancouver Food Bank and the Central Okanagan Food Bank. Now, they are doing some exceptional work, and it includes more than just providing a food hamper or a bag of food. The Greater Vancouver Food Bank has a new program called Fresh Start, and it stands for Foundation, Resources, Education, Support, and Help. And it connects clients when clients come to their distribution center. It connects clients with essential support services such as Work BC, and they'll help them with career counseling, resume building, interview, preparation, and job assistance. And I just think that is so amazing that you can go to a food bank and you have this taken care of. They have translation services. They have all kinds of extra pieces that go along with, becoming, getting over that hurdle, because we know that food has gotten so expensive and it's hard. And some of these people have lost a job due to no fault of their own. So giving them some new skills. The Central Okanagan Food Bank has a program called More Than Food program, which is great because that's easy to understand. And they're doing a lot with the local fruits and vegetables from the Okanagan region. So there's a lot of fruits and vegetables that if they're ugly, if they're not sellable, they create like soups and frozen meals and smoothies for their clients. So they're able to provide that fresh, nutritious food, especially if the kids really need to have their brains grow and become, be able to go to school and get good marks and go to college and maybe become fundraisers someday. So I love all the things that the food banks are both doing to help people in their community. So, that's my shout out for today.
Amazing. Thank you. And mine is short and sweet. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that March 8th is International Women's Day for 2026. And on my LinkedIn, you're going to be seeing lots of articles about female and women-led leadership in the sector. I'll be sharing out articles and passing on things I see outside of Charity e-News, other places. I'm pretty passionate about this. I'm a girl mom, and it means a lot to me, what's happening right now in the world in terms of equity and gender rights and all of that. So International Women's Day, March 8th. Hope everyone will share out some interesting piece of information about that within your networks, and we'll just continue to hopefully move the needle and keep the good work going. And that's it. That's a wrap. Lots of chat, lots of talk. What a pleasure it's been. Thank you again, Kerri, for coming to us from Vancouver Island, being part of this discussion. Ed, it's always a pleasure. I'm Lisa McDonald. Until next time, when we come back with Let's Get Real, Canadian Perspectives on Fundraising. Bye for now.